In this video now I'm going to apply some of the structural elucidation techniques or steps that we diagrammed in the previous lecture. So starting first with the molecular formula for this unknown compound. To calculate degrees of unsaturation, we say it's 2 times the carbon count plus 2. So with 8 carbons, we expect 18 hydrogens if it's fully saturated. There are only 8 hydrogens actually there, so we subtract 8. And then oxygen does not affect the formula. You divide by 2. For every 2 protons you pull off, you make 1 pi bond or 1 ring. So what this is going to give us is a final degrees of unsaturation of 18 minus 8 over 2, or 5. And notice that this number is greater than or equal to 4. So you should think there's probably an arene.